under fading skies. Tattered flags waving dreams in our eyes. The crowds roar like a storm on the wind. We're the underdogs fighting again.
Hey guys, how are you guys doing tonight? My God, it's Monday, man. It's Monday, and for some reason, I'm just absolutely excited for some crazy ass reason. But that being said, welcome to Stateside Footy, and of course, tonight we're talking a little bit about the U.S. Men's National Team. It's the roster release, and there's a lot that we have to talk about it. To say that this roster is interesting, I think it would be the kind way of describing it. Maybe even a little bit, kind of a little bit of a clusterfuck, a lot of MLS domestic based players. So there's a lot that we have to talk about. But before we do, man, go ahead and hit the like and subscribe buttons because we are in a race for 1,000 subs. And of course, this channel has absolutely grown over the last month. A lot of subs that have come in, and I'm very appreciative of those that have already done that. And of course, as this channel grows, man, we're going to be doing some really cool stuff on this channel as far as special guests and things like that. So again, man, make sure you hit that like and subscribe buttons. All right, let's get into it. So a couple days ago, I saw that Thomas Mueller kind of let the cat out of the bag when it came to Tristan Blackman, and I think that kind of came as a shock to everyone. That he would be named to this team. I think a lot of people just assumed that we would see some familiar faces, guys who are an integral part of this core, guys that probably weren't maybe some guys that we thought were going to be part of the Gold Cup squad that ultimately ended up not. But obviously turning the pages now, and then obviously the start of the season, we're probably going to see some of those guys, but Mauricio Pochettino, true to his word, essentially saying, like, listen, it's not about where you're playing. It's about how you're playing, what you're doing. It's going to determine your spot on the team. And sure enough, man, there are some definable, noticeable absences from this roster, man. And I think that kind of caught a lot of people by surprise, especially the goalkeeper position, which is actually kind of funny to me because I would think that, we would assume that Matt Turner would probably be a part of this. Obviously, Turner coming back to Major League Soccer with the New England Revolution, and it actually has played pretty well since coming back to Major League Soccer. But nope, not a part of the squad. As a matter of fact, there's going to be two goalkeepers a part of this roster. They're getting their first caps, which is seemingly interesting. But that being said, the one name that for me, at least, was not surprising was the fact that Matt Freese is going to be a part of this one. And of course, Matt obviously is the number one of the squad. But that being said, I just kind of assumed that Turner would be a part of this, considering that, again, man, he's been playing pretty well for the New England Revolution. But I think Mauricio Pochettino has seen enough, and now this is an opportunity to kind of cycle in some new guys, get some guys into camp, and get them around the first team. And from that standpoint, I think I'm okay with this. Don't get me wrong. These two friendlies are actually kind of massive when you consider South Korea, very good team. The Japanese national team, very, very, very good team. And so from that standpoint, these are the type of, I guess you can say, the type of friendlies that actually matter. This isn't New Zealand. This isn't Austria or Australia. This isn't, Venezuela or Bolivia or any of those bullshit national teams. These are actually respectable national teams. And so from that standpoint, man, I guess a lot of people are a little bit discouraged. But let's go ahead and get into some notable absences first, because Weston McKennie, not a part of the squad this time around. And it makes sense considering that when you look at the start of the season, when you look at just exactly what happens every single year with Wes, hasn't really seen significant action through the first couple matches of the Serie A season. I think he's featured in 2 games. I think he's only been on the pitch for 2 or 3 minutes. So there wasn't really a lot that you can extrapolate from any of that. And so for Mauricio Pochettino, it's not about your preseason. It's about, have you actually been contributing? Even on a small sample size, he's not. So he's not a part of this camp, which I think, to me at least, and to a lot of U.S. men's national team, fans, which actually was kind of surprising considering he is a massive piece to this team, a massive piece of the core, and probably a guy who I actually have right now penciled into that box-to-box midfield position for the World Cup. And so far, he's not a part of this one. Yunus Musa, again, not a part of this camp, and it makes sense. He has not really seen the pitch at all this year for AC Milan. As a matter of fact, when you talk about Yunus Musa, it's not about the playing time as is. It's about where he's actually going to transfer, because that will happen before the window ends. I talked to a source, and he would like to be in the Premier League. Now, whether or not Crystal Palace or Nottingham Forest are actually going to pull the trigger is yet to be seen. It's more likely he's going to stay in the Serie A, whether that be for Atalanta or maybe even Napoli. That seems to be where that's probably going to be head. But that being said, the tasty treat out there for Yunus Musa is probably Crystal Palace, because I actually think that he fits perfectly with Oliver Glasner and what they're trying to do up in Palace. And I actually think that if he goes to Palace, he's actually going to put himself in a much better position for 2026 than he would if he stayed in Serie A. The other name is Anthony Robinson. He came back and made his first appearance this last Saturday. And granted, it was only like 14, 15 minutes. But that being said, man, Anthony Robinson, it's good to have him back. And he's probably going to need at least until the next window before he comes back in. But that being said, it's nice to see that Jedi's back on the pitch. And I would probably assume by the time that we hit the next international window that both Anthony Robinson and Serginho Dest finally are going to be back into this squad playing at the same time. And it's going to allow Mauricio Pochettino to do exactly what he really wants to do. Ricardo Pepi, not a part of this one, which isn't surprising because, again, not a lot of playing time. Actually made his first appearance this last weekend as well, too, in a relief appearance there for PSV. It's, again, good to see Ricardo Pepi back because as of right now, again, he's my number one. Come 2026, I think he's the best striker in the pool. And I think as he continues to develop, by the time that we hit the World Cup, man, I think he's probably going to be such a focal point of this attack that it's going to be undeniable. Flo Balogun, same thing. Getting back. He made his first full 90 this last weekend for Monaco. I think it was against, I want to say it was against Metz. But that being said, it's nice to see him getting his full 90. But again, not enough time to be a part of this window, which is fine. And if he stays healthy, he will be a part of the next one, I would probably assume. Of course, we just talked about Matt Turner. And it's actually kind of interesting, though, considering that Matt Turner, for as embarrassing it was of an offseason for him, and make no mistake, it was absolutely embarrassing. Getting the deal with Olympic Lyon, and then having Olympic Lyon's new, I guess you could say, new ownership group essentially say, like, listen, you're not even good enough to play here, let alone good enough to be making $8 million. So they actually paid for him to go on loan because he just wasn't good enough, which is how he ends up back in Major League Soccer. But at least, through the starts that he's had, he's actually played pretty goddamn well. But that being said, I think Mauricio Pochettino has seen enough of Matt Turner to say maybe not good enough. And of course, Malik Tillman, who I would probably assume will be a part of the next one. So it's too bad. because I kind of wanted to see Tillman, but it is what it is. Let's go to the chat here. We got Greg, Greg Perez. Greg, it's good to see you again. It's good to have you along tonight, man. Let's see. Interesting choice of roster selection. I have no problem with Klinsmann shout, as we only have 2 goalkeepers starting in Europe, and he's one of them. Yeah. But the interesting thing is he's playing in Serie B. And here's the thing. I love Italian soccer, but let's not kid ourselves here that he's playing for Sassana in Serie B. Not exactly the biggest club in the world. Also not in exactly the biggest leagues in the world. As a matter of fact, I think I think it would be interesting to compare Serie B to some of the other secondary leagues in Europe and see exactly where that fleshes out. But that being said, it's like one of the things that I always say about this is, because I'm not a Euro snob guy. Don't get me wrong. I recognize that if there is a player of talent, he should be challenging himself in better leagues, especially in a World Cup year, because there's nothing in Major League Soccer that is going to prep you for a World Cup in the domestic league. You're going to want to get as close to that as you possibly can, which means you should be playing in Europe. And so from that standpoint, I understand. But that being said, the one thing about Major League Soccer is that it's a front foot league. And when you look at the DP structure and you look at 99% of the teams in the league that use their 3 DP spots in attacking positions, and the fact that it's not really a heavy defensive league means you're going to see a lot of shots. You're going to see a tremendous amount of shots at keeper, right? You're going to be able to stay sharp. And that's what the difference is between an outfield player and a goalkeeper in Major League Soccer. Is at least with Major League Soccer, you're going to stay sharp. You're going to stay ready. And I actually think that it does actually prepare you for a World Cup as a goalkeeper. But that being said, knowing how Italian soccer plays, I'll just say this, man. Yes, I guess it's okay that he's over there. But that being said, where he's at in the pecking order with these three keepers, it's going to be interesting, right? I would probably think that he's probably number 2, and Roman Celentano is going to be 3. But let's get into it real quick, man, because I got them right here. These are your 3 keepers for these 2 friendlies. Matt Freese obviously is number 1, and I don't think there's any dispute, right? And I think the Gold Cup actually showed the distance between, I guess, him and a guy like Zach Steffen and a guy like Matt Turner. And I think his Gold Cup was actually pretty good. Yes, he had the mistake, and I think the third match of the group play where he essentially gave away a goal. But that being said, he responded pretty well. I thought he played incredibly well in the knockout rounds, especially the quarterfinal within the shootout. And I think that from that standpoint, he's playing with a lot of confidence right now. As a matter of fact, I just saw NYCFC over the weekend against FC Cincinnati, and he looked pretty goddamn good. And so you can see that Matt Freese is starting to peak a little bit. I think there's a lot of confidence with him, not only understanding that he's number 1 with his club, but he's also number 1 with his country. And it's going to be interesting to see exactly how Matt Freese is going to peak at the right time. And this is actually a very good window for him because, again, you're going up against South Korea, which is a very, very disciplined and a very talented national team. And, of course, Japan is an unbelievable national team as well, too, very disciplined as well, too. And this is going to be a good test for Matt Freese. Most importantly, this is going to be a good test for our back 3, back 4. And so I'm actually looking forward to seeing Matt Freese in this one. The interesting thing is who's going to be the number 2. Is it going to be Roman Celentano with FC Cincinnati, who, by the way, played pretty well against NYCFC as well, too. And, of course, he's aided by a little bit of a pretty good defense there in Cincinnati. But then there's the wild card, which is Jonathan Klinsmann. Of course, he's Jurgen's kid. And now he joins Sebastian Berhalter as, kids of former U.S. men's national team head coaches who are current national team players, which I actually find quite amusing. But, it's interesting, right? Because I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I've seen Jonathan Klinsmann play in Serie B because I haven't. But that being said, he has made only 1 start in Serie B, gave up a goal. But that being said, it was, I think, in a 3-1 win. And from that standpoint, I would probably assume just because he's got the European nod, he's probably going to come in as number 2. But that thing it's going to flesh out when players report and Mauricio Pochettino actually has an opportunity to evaluate them to find out exactly who's going to be 2, who's going to be 3. Both Klinsmann and Celentano are making their first caps. They have yet to actually have a cap yet. So this will be their first opportunity under Mauricio Pochettino. So it's going to be quite interesting for these keepers. But I would probably assume that Matt Freese is going to get both of them. Greg Perez asks, Ethan Horvath is gaining some traction. Had a huge performance today in the Carabao Cup, I heard. And he also got a move too. I think he's with Sheffield Wednesday now. And I think that actually he's going to a better team in the championship. Last year, I think he was with what's it called? The Welsh team, not Swansea, but the other one. And he actually had a horrible go last season. So I will say that Ethan depends on it. I guess it depends on Ethan. I don't know if he's actually in consideration. And we haven't seen Ethan Horvath get called in quite some time, right? So maybe it all depends on his trajectory over the course of the next 4 to 5 weeks heading into that next international window. If he could string together, 3 clean sheets out of 4, three clean sheets out of 5 and look convincing, he might get a call in. He might. All right, let's turn to some defenders now, because I actually kind of like this. This is actually the area where I actually don't mind, with the exception of Nathan Harriel. Not a big Nathan Harriel guy. But that being said, I thought we might potentially see a Joe Scally appearance. I'm just not sold on Nathan Harriel. I don't think Nathan is good enough to be at this level. But that being said, Max Arfson gets called in because Jedi Robinson's not ready to go. And of course, the last time we saw Max Arfson was at the Gold Cup, and I actually thought he was one of our better players. And of course, he kind of plays that left wing back position for the Columbus Crew. So from that standpoint, his transition from Columbus to the national team seems pretty seamless. And of course, Max almost got the move across the pond this summer, but of course, Columbus rejected the offer because it was actually more patronizing than anything else. So Arfson stayed in Major League Soccer. I probably would assume that the more that these appearances with the national team, and the more that he can prove that he can play on it, the better those offers are going to be. And maybe he gets moved in January, maybe. But that being said, Arfson will start on that left-hand side and in that wing-back position. And considering that Christian's in this group this time around, he's going to have another crack at essentially just manning that left side of the pitch. And I'm actually kind of curious to see exactly the second go round with Arfson in the starting position, because I actually think at this point there's a good case to be made that he's already checked his name for the 2026 World Cup as the backup to Anthony Robinson. If all things are equal and everybody's healthy, I actually do think that he makes the World Cup squad as that backup left wing back. I actually think he's been playing pretty well to the point where it almost like who else? Who else is gotten this run with the national team so far, but also who has shown that they're capable, not only capable, but also trustworthy in the eyes of head coach Mauricio Pochettino, right? I don't think there's another name out there. And I think Max has done a good job. Now, granted, we'll find out, because South Korea and Japan is not Trinidad and Tobago. It's not, Costa Rica. It's not name some, mid-CONCACAF squad, fill in the blank with some mid-CONCACAF squad, right? So, I mean, he's going to get a big test, and we will actually know, because I would probably assume that both Japan and South Korea are going to be involved in World Cup 2026. So this is almost a little bit of a dress rehearsal. Serginho Dest is making his way back into the national team. It's about time, and we've absolutely missed Serginho Dest and his capabilities with the national team. And I think he's made 3 appearances so far from PSV, 2 goals and assists already. And it looks like he's hit the ground running in the Dutch Eredivisie. And this is exactly something that I've been waiting for too, because unfortunately, for the way that Mauricio Pochettino likes to play, it gives them something else to show opponents, right? They've been literally stuck trying to force the ball up the left-hand side and kind of chopping and changing and, chopping and screwing on that right-hand side. And now they actually have somebody with the ability of a guy like Serginho Dest, and now it kind of gives the U.S. men's national team attack a lot more balance now that he's back in the fold. And I'm curious to see exactly how this plays out, because I actually think that Serginho Dest, not only making overlapping runs on the right side, but also his ability to ping balls into the box is going to give the U.S. Just a different dimension, a different look, and something that's actually going to make him a little bit more dangerous. But also Serginho can also make runs into the box as well too. It's one of those. He's one of those players that's almost like a Swiss Army. He's almost like a Swiss Army knife. He can just do so much, and he's actually very good at doing a lot of things. He's like a jack of all trades, but a master of many. So I'm quite excited to see Serginho Dest back at that right wing back spot. And that's actually, as far as the defensive group, that's the guy that I'm looking at the most, because I actually think him playing on the other side of Max Sarfson, it's by the way, Chris Richards and Tim Ream are going to have a field day pinging balls forward from that center back position. Alex Freeman gets called in. Again, not a surprise. I thought he had a pretty solid Gold Cup. Wasn't the best player on the pitch at times, but that being said, I think for his first call up and getting a run of games in a tournament like the Gold Cup, I thought he held his own. And I think correct me if I'm wrong, Alex Freeman got moved over the summer, and I think he goes to La Liga. Let me double check that real quick, because I think that's true. Says he's still, or maybe he. Anyway, anywhom, but Alex Freeman will be back, and I like it because, again, I think it's the same thing with Matt Turner. I think Mauricio Pochettino has seen enough of Joe Scally to understand exactly what he can't do, and what Mauricio Pochettino needs from his wingbacks are like, he can't use a stay-at-home defender. He needs guys that can stretch the touch lines. And Alex Freeman actually played pretty well and demonstrated that he possibly can. What this is when you look at some of these domestic players, what we're seeing is these are roster spots like 16 through 23, right? The back end of the bench, where he needs to bring on somebody late in the match in the World Cup, and he knows that he can be able to bring somebody that he can trust, right? This is not about further development in the player pool at certain positions. It's like, okay, cool, I'm going to call in some guys, and I'm going to find out if I can trust them. And if I can, great, they're going to be back in the fold. And if not, we're just going to continue to look. And I think that he found somebody in Alex Freeman that I believe that he can trust. And it's going to be interesting to see how Freeman takes advantage of this next year, because he's not going to overtake Serginho Dest. Let's understand that. But that being said, if he could hold his own, just like Max Arfston, now all of a sudden you got a competent backup. I don't really want to talk about Nathan Harriel, because quite honestly, I don't think he's good enough. And it's interesting considering his inclusion on the team, because he's actually a right back, but I think he's on this team to be a backup left back to Max Arfston. I don't think that he sees the field at all. I would be shocked if Nathan Harriel sees the field. Now, maybe there is a deal already in place with Columbus that, maybe Arfston, features in the first game, maybe plays a half in the second game, and then Harriel will take the final half in that second game. Maybe something like that is already in the works. Obviously, that does happen when it comes to friendlies, but I would probably think that if Arfston gets through that first game unscathed, and he's ready to go for that second one, I don't see Harriel getting the field at all. I just don't see him getting on the pitch. Tim Ream and Chris Richards are back. No surprise whatsoever. These are going to be your starting center backs come 2026. It's already been set in stone. It is what it is, man. I know there's a lot of people that don't like Tim Ream, think that Tim Ream has aged out. I think there is something to that, but that being said, there's also something with experience and the fact that he's actually looked pretty damn good in a U.S. shirt. I know there's a lot of people that have been calling for, Mark McKenzie, and of course he's not on the squad either. to kind of get that left back position next to Chris Richards. But that being said, I think one of the things that Mauricio Pochettino doesn't like about Mackenzie is the fact that he's still raw. And I think there's some trust issues with there. He's already had him in camp, 4 times already. And there's a reason why he's barely saw the field. Barely saw the pitch, and he can't seem to get on. No Cameron Carter-Vickers, no Austin Trusty, which isn't surprising. Cameron Carter-Vickers was Celtic, has not necessarily looked all that great. As a matter of fact, Austin Trusty has looked a lot better than Cameron Carter-Vickers with Celtic. But that being said, neither of those are in. And of course, in their places are Nokai Banks, which I'm happy to see that he's back in camp because I'm actually a big fan of Nokai Banks. I think that kid has got a bright future with the U.S. men's national team. And it's nice that he continues to get called in. Now, whether or not he sees the pitch this time around, yeah, maybe. Again, in that second match, especially considering, Chris Richards and his, in his play with Crystal Palace, I would probably think that, again, just like, potentially with Max Harpston, I would probably assume there's a deal in place with Crystal Palace where, if everything comes off perfect in that first game against South Korea, we might see Nokai Banks come in that second one. Same thing with Tristan Blackman. And I know this one hurt a lot of hurt a lot of people, hurt a lot of fans because they were expecting certain names to be in this camp. But I think the one thing that Tristan Blackman has done has played him. I think he's played his way into this roster. He's actually been very good in Major League Soccer to the point where it's like kind of undeniable. That being said, would I have preferred maybe a guy like Jackson Reagan? Yeah. Jackson's also been playing pretty well. The only difference is Vancouver doesn't leak the type of goals that Seattle leaks. And I think that potentially may have hurt him. And of course, Jackson was dealing with hamstring injuries in the summer. So this is kind of like the next best thing. But that being said, I'm okay with Tristan Blackman. I don't necessarily know that he sees the pitch either. Because obviously, Tim Ream, another MLSer, probably is going to get both games. And if there is going to be rotation, it's going to be with Chris Richards and not necessarily Tim Ream. But again, first time in camp with the U.S. men's. And this is just experience. And I think that I don't think there's anything wrong bringing a guy like that in for experience. So I guess congratulations to Tristan Blackman. But that being said, I'm waiting for the Euro snobs of the U.S. men's national team fan base to talk about some type of conspiracy with Don Garber and the fact that he controls the U.S. Soccer Federation board. But that being said, Mauricio Pochettino and his staff pick the rosters. And I doubt there's any influence when it comes to domestic players. The reality is Mauricio Pochettino has always been in his career largely very, very rewarding to those players that he can trust. He'll bring them in. He'll give certain guys a chance. And if they pass, they will continue to be featured. Right. And I would probably assume that when it comes to some of those guys that were left off, the message should be received because again, when you look at some of these names, and coming from Major League Soccer, it's very aware that he has no problem running out a lot of MLSers as opposed to European-based players, right? So, maybe some of these guys should take it as a threat. Just saying. But that being said, I would probably assume that when it comes to World Cup time, we'll probably see the right guys there. But hopefully, some of these guys that were left off take it as a challenge. Let's talk about midfielders because, surprise, surprise. I would probably assume that when you're looking at this midfield, selection, this shouldn't come as a surprise. I don't think it's a surprise to anyone. Maybe Sean Zawadzki, but Tyler Adams obviously is the captain of this midfield group, and of course he's the best midfielder right now for the U.S. men's national team, playing for Bournemouth, and of course he started the season just on fire right now, and he is the field general right now for the U.S. men's national team, and it kind of goes without saying. He's the guy that everybody takes cues from, and that is exactly what you want from your captain. Sebastian Berhalter coming in again. I thought he played pretty well in the Gold Cup. Was he great? No, but was he serviceable? Yes. And his his ability to take free kicks from deep is actually kind of a weapon for this team. There's always going to be roster spots in the World Cup for guys that can facilitate something when it comes to free kicks late in the match when you're down one or you're tied one, and you want somebody to come on the pitch that might be able to work a whistle and put themselves in a position where they can deliver a free kick. I mean, when I think about that, I think about 2014 with a guy like Graham Zusi. Kyle Beckerman was kind of like that as well too, right? There's always going to be spots on the World Cup roster for specialists, free kick takers, corner takers, and Sebastian Berhalter definitely fits that. As a matter of fact, Sebastian Berhalter is probably better than Luca De La Torre. And that's the interesting thing. I was a little surprised that Luca De La Torre made this roster over a guy like maybe Brendan Aronson, right? Now, granted, Brendan plays for Leeds, and the last time we saw him, he was getting smashed 5-0 against Arsenal. But that being said, it's I think we've seen Luca De La Torre playing that box-to-box role and struggling. Like again, I saw him the last time we saw him was in the Gold Cup. It didn't look all that great. But that being said, he's there, and it's like when you're looking at it, you got 3 box-to-box players in this crew. And you got Sean Zawadzki who can kind of facilitate like 2-3 different positions. But so Zawadzki was supposed to be on the Gold Cup roster, but he was replaced. Injury replacement with Paxton Aronson. So I think this is, I guess, like a Maybelline type of deal for Zawadzki. But that being said, really the only true 10 in this rotation is Diego Luna, and Diego deserves to be here. Diego had more than enough, deserves to be here. And I understand, man, people will say, check it out. He didn't necessarily play that well against Mexico. Yeah, that's true. But Mexico had their full first team out on that pitch while we had our second and third teams out on the pitch. And I didn't think he was all that terrible. But that being said, he had a great Gold Cup, right? And he also had a great Nations League. And he also had a great January camp as well, too. I think Diego put himself in a position where I think he's possibly already etched his name in that World Cup roster because he actually, not only does Pochettino actually trust him, but he's willing to actually sacrifice for the badge, which is something that not a lot of players currently can say. That's all I'm saying. And plus, Diego brings something that I don't think either of the Aronson brothers bring, which is flair. He plays that 10 very creatively. And considering there's no Malik Tillman in this camp, you would probably assume that he's probably going to start both of these matches. So he's going to continue to get a run out. Jack McGlynn on this roster, which again, it's not a surprise. We saw Jack at the Gold Cup, and unfortunately, he was used as a right winger in the Gold Cup, which is not his strong suit at all. But that being said, he's a box to box. He's also like Sebastian Berhalter as well too. He's kind of like a set piece specialist, corner kicks, free kicks, those type of things. He's got a nasty left foot. And he's actually pretty, he's not the quickest dude in the world, but he's actually a really good passer. And you're going to need somebody who can break lines with his passing. And Jack actually can do that. So it's kind of weird seeing, Sebastian and Jack together on the same squad. But that being said, we saw it in the Gold Cup, and I'm not surprised that Mauricio went back to that. Listen, Sean Zawadzki, I don't know what his role is going to be on this team. It's almost like Tristan Blackman. I don't necessarily think he sees the pitch, and if he does, it's not going to be for that long. But that being said, there's something about Zawadzki that Pochettino likes or has seen that he thinks he can come in and do a job. So I guess it's going to be wait and see to see exactly what Zawadzki is going to do. But that being said, it's interesting considering that you would think that one of the Aronson brothers would be a part of this group at the very least. Not the case. Not the case. We have a comment from Josh Toll. Josh, good to see you, man. Hopefully you like and subscribe. He says, until the Gold Cup, I didn't think many MLS fans would have said Freeze was better than Roman. You know what's funny is I thought Matt Freeze has actually been pretty good for like the last year and a half, 2 years. Now it's interesting. I didn't, from an MLS standpoint, it was interesting because it was always Matt Turner, and then if it wasn't, then it was going to be Zach Steffen. The interesting thing is I didn't see what's his bucket from Columbus kind of make that jump from the Olympic team. I didn't see that happening, and of course he kind of got a little run last fall as well too. But that being said, when you saw the development of a dude like Matt Freeze, I can't say that I was surprised. Now that being said, I think it also helped Matt Freeze's case that last season, Matt Turner literally got zero run out in the Premier League. He was essentially not playing, and Zach Steffen ended up getting hurt, and so it actually put a spotlight on a dude like Matt Freeze. And I think a lot of people that weren't aware quickly became aware. And from that standpoint, it helps that you have a coach that that believes in a dude like that. But that being said, I don't know. Let me ask you a question, Josh. How did you think he played in the Gold Cup? Because I actually thought he played incredibly well, man. I thought he played really well. And it's going to be interesting now that the top three candidates for that number one are all playing in Major League Soccer. It's going to be interesting to see how this one plays out. Let's see real quick, just out of curiosity. Yeah, Patrick Schulte. That's who I was looking for. I didn't see the run that Patrick Schulte was going to have. Like Schulte started in the Olympics, and I didn't think he was that great, and I didn't think he deserved a September call-up, but sure enough, he was there. But that being said, I think when you look at the hierarchy of the goalkeepers in Major League Soccer, you can see why he's number one. But now the question is what happens if Matt Turner continues to play, right? And if he continues to play well, right? There's going to be an argument, especially if he's peaking at the right time. And it's going to be a battle, man. That's the interesting thing about those three goalkeepers. I think it's going to be a battle. He said he did better than I expected, right? I think you and a lot of people felt that way as well, too. As far as I'm concerned, the evolution of Matt Freeze over the last year. I mean, I can remember back as 3 years ago. I think I remember, back as 3 years ago, and the talk was Matt Freeze was like one of the more underrated keepers in Major League Soccer. And so I actually think that he's I think he's had his due. And I think he's put out the work, and I'm actually happy that he's getting some shine. Because as of right now, he's probably the best U.S. keeper in Major League Soccer. Probably. I mean, you and I can have an argument about it, but he goes on to say that I'm a Cincy fan, so I'm biased. Yeah, what's interesting too is because I'm a Sounders fan, so I'm a little biased as well too when it comes to certain things. But that being said, he says I'm biased. I thought Roman should have gotten a look earlier. Yeah, but better late than never, right, man? And by the way, this last weekend when NYCFC went to Cincinnati, I thought Roman looked good, man. I thought he played well. He gave up the goal. Okay, fine. But that being said, it wasn't because of, poor play by Roman. It just was, it was just a second half, through ball that, it happens in Major League Soccer all the time, right? I thought he still played well. And it was interesting. It was interesting because I don't think that, Matt Freeze really was all that tested last week, to be honest with you. So it was interesting. I'll say that. But yeah, I'm glad you said that, Josh. I really do. Because you're absolutely right. His goal kicks aren't that great. Yeah, you're absolutely right. But here's the thing though, right? This one actually kind of was a surprise to me. If I'm being honest, because I actually didn't see Celentano getting picked. Not that I don't think that he's worthy, but that being said, I just would think that with the time that's left between now and then, I would probably just assume that they would stick with that three or four goalkeepers, and Celentano would kind of be like in the next group post 2026. But that being said, I mean, yeah, I guess I got to give Pochettino a little credit here because he's, at least he's wanting to take a look. Yeah, but I'm glad that you said that, though. I'm glad you said this, right? Because yeah, you could be biased, but at least at least you're willing to call it out. So I do appreciate that. Let's go here to the forwards because it's interesting, right? Essentially only two strikers in this group with Damian Downs, and I like Damian Downs, and I'm glad that he's in camp. The interesting thing with Damian is he in some circles, a lot of people think Damian made the wrong decision by going to Southampton this summer. Because obviously his team gets promoted to the Bundesliga, Cologne, and he made the decision to leave the Bundesliga to go to the Championship. And a lot of people thought that might have been the wrong move for Damian Downs. But that being said, I actually like it because he's betting on himself. Number one, he's looking at Josh Sargent, and he's looking at some of the guys, the Haji Wrights of the world. He's looking at maybe the Daryl DKs of the world, even Patrick Ajaming that have gone, that are going to the Championship, and he's looking at it like, listen, man, I have the skill to win a starting job, to put the ball in the back of the net. And here's the thing: for the short term, if I can go toe to toe with a guy like Josh Sargent in the Championship, all that's going to mean is that we're going to be neck and neck for that third striker position. And who knows, maybe I do something that Josh doesn't do that gets me that edge. And then I feature in the World Cup. And then if Southampton gets promoted and they're one of the heavy favorites that go right back up, then all of a sudden post World Cup he's playing in the Premier League. Right? It's a gamble. Right? It's a gamble that not a lot of players would probably take, but he was willing to gamble on himself versus being in the Bundesliga, understanding exactly what it takes to compete in that league, and maybe he's not necessarily ready for the Bundesliga. Especially some of the heavies in the Bundesliga, right? And so I would probably assume that he talked with his agent, and this was a strategic move. Now, that being said, right, I like it because I think Damian Downs is in a position where he might be able to push Josh. He might. Not saying he will, but I'm saying he might. And if that happens, yeah, I would understand it, man. I can understand why he decided to make that move. And the interesting thing is, yeah, he's gotten some run with Southampton so far through 4 matches in the Championship, and I've seen all his appearances, and he's looked good. His positioning is good. I love the way the dude just camps in channels and makes runs. That being said, service hasn't necessarily been there. But that being said, I mean, if he can put himself in a position to grab that starting position with Southampton, that dude's going to score a lot of goals. And so I'm hoping that happens sooner rather than later. But that being said, he's included on this one because, again, Flo Balogun, Ricardo Pepi, not ready to come back into the fold. So this is his opportunity. And I would probably assume that we're going to see Damian Downs a lot through these 2 matches. I would probably assume that he starts the second match. I would assume. Let's see. I also wish Miles Robinson would have got called up, but he's had his chances and not done. Yeah, well, here's the thing, right? I don't think Miles has ever been the same since the Achilles injury. That's just what I believe. And you're absolutely right. He's had multiple opportunities come in. And the funny thing about it is he hasn't been able to crack that center back. I know that Pochettino has used him he's using him as a fullback, as that third, I guess you can say center back / fullback in the back 3. Didn't look good doing that either. And so I think that unless something drastically changes with Miles, I would probably assume that Miles is going to get phased out. It sucks. But that being said, he's not the only one, right? Austin Trusty, who I think Austin should probably be a part of this, right? Because they need a quality backup left center back, and he's actually playing better than Cameron Carter-Vickers at Celtic. He's actually looked really good at Celtic, and he's holding his own in European competition. So he's not the only one that's that's missing out, man. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, Miles hasn't taken advantage, man, and I just don't think that he's. I don't think he's been the same since the injury. Let's see. We have Dan Davenport. Danny, good to see you, man. Are you surprised Tottenham has never looked at going to purchase Anthony Robinson for full? Yeah. Yeah. I am surprised, right? Because he's a gettable player. You know, between 40 and 60 million pounds, he's a gettable player, and also he's durable. I think he's more durable than Destiny Udogie. Plus, I think he's better suited for Thomas Frank than Destiny Udogie, personally. And that's the interesting thing, right? When you're talking about fullbacks in the Premier League, he's probably a top 3 left back in the league already, and he's only going to get better. He made his first appearance last week against Manchester United. Granted, it was a short appearance, but that being said, it's good that he's back. And I would probably assume by the time the next international window rolls around, Anthony Robinson is going to be back doing Anthony Robinson things. And yes, if Tottenham were smart, they would have tried to go after him. But I question whether or not Tottenham actually believes in U.S. internationals. That's what I really truly believe. I don't think Johan Lang rates American internationals. Christian Pulisic is back, which shouldn't come as a shock. With all the brouhaha, I think Pulisic is motivated, and I think he wants to put a lot of things to rest. And again, the way that I feel about Christian Pulisic and how he handled things this summer, I was okay with it. I think I was one of many that were actually okay with it, because when you look at the Gold Cup from a U.S. soccer standpoint, they don't even value the Gold Cup, which is why they constantly bring in second and third teams to the Gold Cup. They almost treat it like Camp Cupcake in January. It's a lot of domestic players. And then, of course, they'll ask certain European players if they want to be a part of it. Most turn it down. Some actually come and use that opportunity. And I think they used it wisely, because I think those that showed up from Europe and played well, I think they definitely solidified themselves when it comes to the World Cup, right? You're not going to say no to an opportunity to impress your new head coach, right? When others say no, they said yes, and I think they made the most of it. But you know, the thing with Christian was that he still thinks that this team is either ran by Bruce Arena or ran by Jurgen Klinsmann or ran by Greg Berhalter, where they gave the players a lot of leeway. You know, the inmates kind of ran the asylum, right, where they were able to do that. Where in the past, we're not going to play in the Gold Cup, but you know, in the tune-ups, yeah, I'll be a part of it, and it's not that big of a deal. But that being said, Mauricio Pochettino says, no, we're not splitting squads here. You're either going to be a part of this group or you're not. And if you're not, no problem. And then I think what ended up happening was that Christian had to say something, right? He had to say something to the media, and he used I just wanted to rest up. Well, if that was the case, then why did you want to play in the 2 friendlies? Like, if that was really your reasoning, then why did you agree to play in the 2 friendlies? If that was something that you were dealing with knocks and niggles, then why were you willing to play against Turkey and Switzerland, but not the Gold Cup? Right? So that was my first question. But that being said, if we are to believe Christian, and that was something that he wanted to do, was use this time to rest up and prepare for this upcoming season so he can put himself in a good position come World Cup 2026. Okay, fair enough. But that being said, I think I think he ended up looking a little terrible when it came to the media. But that being said, right, I think Mauricio Pochettino essentially laid down the gauntlet and said, listen, man, yeah, the inmates aren't running the asylum here. I am. And if you want to be a part of the group, man, you're going to have to make sacrifices. And I think that Christian Pulisic is probably motivated, because I think he actually understands that he rubbed some of the fan base wrong. And so I think there's going to be a little extra motivation in this window to show that, yeah, he is Captain America, and that he is able to come in motivated and give the fans what they want, which is what we all expect Christian to do. when he puts on the U.S. shirt, which is play good football, score goals, and be that dude. Be that dude whose balls have already been in the room for 45 minutes, before he shows up, man. That's what we want from a dude like Christian. We've been hearing it since 2015, 2016, that he's probably the best U.S. player in the world. Okay. This is an opportunity to erase the last year and a half. So we'll see. I'm glad he's here because it means that he's going to be working side by side with a dude like Diego Luna. So for me, that's kind of tasty. So we'll see, man. We'll see. Let's see. Greg Perez says, would you start Josh over Zendejas? Well, Zendejas isn't a striker. So yeah, Josh is going to start. Speaking of Josh, yeah, listen, an interesting summer for Josh. The interesting thing was he had a deal on the table to go back to the Bundesliga. He didn't want to go. He wanted to stay in England because I would probably assume that he thinks he's either going to Burnley or Leeds in the Premier League. But if that doesn't happen, he's more than willing to stay at Norwich for another Norwich City for another season. And of course, he started the season absolutely on fire, 4 goals, 4 games. And he's reminding everybody just exactly what Josh does every single year. He starts on fire. And I think there is some motivation to get back into a U.S. shirt because he hasn't scored since 2019 for the U.S., right? So I think there's also motivation for Josh Sargent as well, too. And when you look at the fact that there's only 2 strikers on this roster, yeah, I would probably assume that Josh probably plays a match and a half. I would probably, because I think Damien's going to see the field. And it all depends on how that first match goes. But yeah, Josh starts for the U.S. against South Korea, 100%. And of course, now that you see that Serginho Dest is back, Christian is back, Timmy Weah is back, and now all of a sudden this attack is starting to look like the way it should. I don't think there's any excuses. I think there's service there. So it's going to be interesting to see how Josh handles this one, but 100% he starts. Speaking of Timmy Weah, he's back, and I'm happy he's back. And of course, Timmy made the move to Marseille, got his first start this last week, and I thought he looked pretty good. Didn't really do much with it, but I thought he looked really good. So I'm really happy with that. And of course, this team has absolutely missed him. Last year, spent a lot of time injured. Spent a lot of time on the fringes of Juventus, so he didn't really get called in a lot. The timing was just always seemed to be bad for Timmy Weah when it came to injuries. But that being said, he's finally back, and I'm excited, man. I'm super excited because Tim, let me tell you, man, this is your opportunity as well too. I think that there's a core guy. There's a few core guys in this camp that I guess you can say that would love to give a middle finger to a couple of other media guys out there. And I think Tim Weah is one of them. And then finally, Alex Zendejas. And of course, Alex, obviously, he plays for Club America down in Liga MX. He's a winger, and it's something that they absolutely needed. They needed some cover on the right side, because I would probably assume that Weah is probably not going to be playing both. There's going to be some mixing and matching, and I think Zendejas was brought in specifically for that reason. So we'll see. But that being said, when I think about the players on this team, man, I'm actually, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm excited. But that being said, when I look at the totality of this team, I'm a little worried because, again, we're seeing a bulk of some of these guys that we already saw. And I kind of wanted to see Wes and Eunice in this camp. I really did, because that being said, it's like I want this team to be as close to being 100% with everybody back in the fold. Guys that we know for a fact we're going to see at the World Cup, right? I would probably assume there's going to be some MLSers at the World Cup, but for the most part, I wanted to see the core guys here. We're pretty close, but still no Pepe, no Balogun, no Tillman, no Wes, no Eunice. And of course, the goalkeeping situation, two guys that have yet to get their first cap, right? So on one side, it's nice to see Christian. It's nice to see Josh back. Nice to see Timmy back. But that being said, it's like, man, that midfield against a team like South Korea, a very quick and a very disciplined team. Same thing with Japan. Like the question is whether or not they're just going to carve up the middle of the pitch. And whether like is it going to be a double pivot? Or are they going to play 2-6s and kind of drop back and kind of make sure that middle of the pitch kind of stays a little bit more compact? Or is this going to be a situation like we saw at the Gold Cup where Sebastian Berhalter is kind of floating a little higher up the pitch, kind of underneath the 210s, and that leaves them a little open when it comes to the counterattack? I would probably assume we're going to see more front foot U.S. team than kind of being a little bit more compact. And that kind of worries me a little bit because when I think about the fact that it's Sebastian Berhalter and Luca Della Torre, who should not be on this team, and Sean Zawadzki, who again should not be on this team, let me tell you, man, I'm kind of worried about this one. I can withstand the goalkeepers, right? I can really withstand the goalkeepers, but that being said, if we're in a situation where we're in a situation where they're holding possession and they're literally doing their best to keep us on the back foot, I'm a little worried, man. I'm a little worried. And of course, the forward line, at least we got Timmy Way and Christian Pulisic back in the fold. I think that's going to help. But man, I would have killed to see Anthony Robinson in this camp. That would have been sweet to have both Serginho Dest and Anthony Robinson back, but such is life. We're going to have to wait till the next FIFA window. But that being said, man, when it's all said and done, man, it's an interesting lineup. It's an interesting roster, and it could be good. I mean, it could be good, but it also could be absolutely terrible as well too. Like the margin for error with this particular roster is, it's very slim, man. So I'm hoping that because of the fact that a lot of these guys grew up together on that Gold Cup roster, they're very familiar, and that bonding that they did with the Gold Cup kind of has some carryover. We'll see. We'll definitely see. But before I go, I do want to show you guys this right here, that I'm available on X at Stateside Footy, and of course I'm available on TikTok as well at the same time at Stateside Footy. So definitely check me out on there. I usually post videos on TikTok once every other day, so it's definitely active over there. And of course, I love talking U.S. soccer. So if you want to hit me up on X, man, I'm more than willing to engage with you guys. And again, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button because we are on a race to 1,000 subs. And so far, man, this channel has actually been growing, so I'm pretty happy with that. So, all right, just a quick programming note before I go. We're back on Thursday for the Champions League reveal. And of course, for Tottenham Hotspur, we're going to find out exactly what that Champions League schedule is going to be like. And exactly how that kind of meshes with the calendar as well, too. So definitely check that out. That's going to be Thursday at 6 o'clock Eastern. I think that's midnight UK time. And then, of course, this weekend we have the pre-match build-up for Spurs versus Bournemouth on Friday with special guest Soren Craigs. And then, of course, on Saturday we have the Hotspur live stream, Tottenham versus Bournemouth from the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. So that should be absolutely fun. And, of course, this weekend, we also have the MLS live stream. And, of course, we do that every single weekend. And it's an opportunity to feature Major League Soccer. And, of course, I think what's going to end up happening is as we get into September, we're going to do some USL live streams as well, too. I'm looking forward to that. But the reality is we're getting to that point in the Major League Soccer schedule where we're getting to September. And now it's going to be a race to decision day. And I think this is actually the best portion of the MLS schedule where certain teams make their moves, and we're going to start seeing some differential right there in that mid-table, and maybe some teams that kind of have been holding back a little are going to start making their runs. And I'm looking at you, Real Salt Lake. So that's going to be this Sunday. Excuse me. That's going to be this weekend as well too. Also, Leagues Cup semifinals go down tomorrow. And I believe it's Orlando City versus Inter Miami, and of course Seattle versus the LA Galaxy. And of course, fuck the LA Galaxy, Sounders till I die. So that's going to be interesting. Although Danny Musovsky caught a red card, so that's going to be interesting. But that being said, with the Leagues Cup final will be a part of the live stream package here on Stateside Footy. Of course, we're going to do the final for Leagues Cup as well too. So there's going to be plenty of U.S. soccer, plenty of Major League Soccer, and there's going to be some USL Championship as well too. So I'm really looking forward to it, man. The summer soccer now has kind of bled into September, and I'm super excited about it. So there's plenty to catch here on Stateside Footy. And again, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. I hope you enjoy the rest of your Monday night. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you guys have a great week, and we'll see you on Thursday. Take care, guys.
Rusted goalposts under fading skies.